Okay, so I mean, so the first thing is I'm definitely not at the end of the journey of learning, that's for sure. But but I did have a crucible in my life. And funny enough, when I was at this course in the States, that's something I spoke about, like what was your crucible in life, you know? And it's only really when you can identify that can, it's those things that take you to the next level, you know? And I had a triple whammy. I bailed out of iBurst and obviously pissed off a lot of people there. And that was for family. And then, of course, I did it for family, but it looked like I was going to fuck up my family anyway. So then I was thinking, why did I bail out of iBurst? And then during all of that, then my old man and I was sucked into some accusations by a former employee of Vodacom about nepotism. And I was on the front page of the Sunday Times for 3 weeks, which I must say, it's only when you wake up on a Sunday morning and you see that kind of thing and you don't really have a platform on which to defend yourself that you actually understand like how that feels. And all of that shit kind of culminated into a real dark kind of depression, not a good space. And I think that was the catalyst. So, and I went to Harvard. I did this 10-day course at the School of Public Policy with the YGLs. And I didn't sleep, but I worked really hard and I met some great people. But you kind of, because you're working hard, you're not sleeping, your mind just starts going a little bit fucking nuts. And then I basically had an epiphany. I think on the second or third day of that course, I just started writing. Just writing, like on paper. And I don't think I stopped. I didn't sleep that night. All I did was write through the night. The next day I just wrote the whole day. It was basically a whole long epiphany. And then it culminated in me getting on the plane, flying home and landing and saying, I know what I'm going to do next. So that is the process.
Do you have any advice because I mean, you pulled out of that incredibly well. Do you have any advice that you can share to anybody else going through something in the same kind of space?
In 4 words, harden the fuck up. That's what I had to do.
Yeah.
That's actually what I did. I just stopped feeling sorry for myself. Because you're basically you're just feeling sorry for yourself when you're in that dark. So harden the fuck up. And the best way to harden the fuck up is to have a look around and see how people are living. Look at all their stories, and I promise you, everyone's got a story. And my lawyer actually once said it to me. You take your troubles, and you want to share your troubles. So you and your mates agree. You'll go sit around a table. You put all your troubles on the table, and you'll divide it up and you'll share. So everyone puts their troubles on the table. You put the troubles there, but you look around and you're like, you take your troubles back. You say, you know what, I'm okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's got their shit.
Yeah.
And the best way to not feel sorry for yourself is to kind of just realize, for all of those challenges, for me personally, I'm more blessed than most people in the world. So suck it up, move on, and when it comes to failure and all of that stuff, a good rule of thumb is the people who matter don't care. The people who care don't matter. And I always think about that because a lot of the time it's worrying what other people think.
Yeah.
The most important decision I ever made in my life was my family first. And everything flowed from there and became good. Like my life sorted itself out.
Mm.
And every time I start fucking wobbling, I remind myself, family first, sort that out, and then it's always the foundation, and you kind of, sometimes you forget about the foundation because you put so many layers on top of it. Because every single person I know over the age of 55 who's made a lot of money, all they talk about is how they wish they'd spent more time with their family.
We feel we're on a rocket. Whether we blow up or land on the moon, at least we'll be among the stars.
Okay, we are trying to do something different, I think. We're kind of trying to say that it doesn't have to be the way that people say it has to be. It doesn't have to be that way. But we're not. It's not like the Egyptian revolution where we're saying change, 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 and then they kill the oak or get rid of the oak, and now they don't know what they're going to do. We have a path.
Yeah.
We have a dream, and it feels like that's a path that's worth chasing. And World of Avatar is the manifestation of all of that. Mix It Right Now is my current avatar, but it's not the dream. It's just one piece in the puzzle. And I think as long as we I think that's what people buy into. The fact that we are going down a path that people have said is impossible, you have to compromise. And we're saying, no, we think we can get there without having to compromise. But look, it's not all good, buddy. I've also got my challenges. Whether we explode or not, it's still not going to be, it's not going to be easy. And we're certainly not out of the woods. This mixer challenge is massive. I mean, this is not easy to turn the ship into the right, get it in the going in the right direction. It's really a diamond that's covered in coal. It's, as we scrape off every layer, it just gets better and better. If you want to make a difference, if you want to feel like you had your moment and you used it usefully, then the first point is connecting people. So you can't do anything without connecting people. And Mixit gives us a great tool for us to connect. Yeah. The second, and what's nice about that is it plays to my original ambition, which was the top of the pyramid doesn't need any help. It's the bottom of the pyramid where the opportunity lies, but also like the need. So Mixit plays to that. The second thing is we need to engage. So connect, engage. Engage means we need to get more into games, and we haven't done enough in that space. And to be truly honest, I mean, I could say if we're not the biggest games company in the world 10 years from now, then we'd have failed. Wow. And the third thing is educate. So once you've got people connected and once you've got their attention, you can start helping them learn. And education is a pillar for us. So we've got a guy called Marlon Parker who helps us a lot of that already. We've got a separate Section 21 NGO that kind of starting to get nice traction around all of that. But to kind of step back from the woods, Mixit woods, and look at the forest. The forest is about the whole story, like connecting people, engaging them into the system, and then giving them something in return, and not just just an opportunity to make new friends. So there's got to be a hunger, not this kind of I want to be an entrepreneur because I want to be an entrepreneur. It's people have got a fire or they don't have a fire. The people who've got a fire find out very quickly when they've got a little business, because without the fire, you just give up. You go back to what you were going to do, which is fine. That's how the world is. But I'd rather not kind of go through that movie. So you've got to find that hunger, which generally means are people willing to take risk without having a safety net.
Yeah.
So a lot of guys have already got a job, all that stuff, and they want to raise the capital, all of that stuff before they kind of quit their job. And when you've broken up with when you've divorced your current wife, come and talk to me, and we'll decide whether we get married. But I'm not signing our marriage contract before you kind of divorce.
Yeah.
And the last thing is maybe something I've underestimated in the past is people always underestimate the importance of experience in an industry. So they look at an industry from the outside and say, well, I understand that, it should change. I can use it. And I go, it's obvious, we can change that easily, but they don't understand how the music industry works. And they go in there naively, and generally it doesn't work. I mean, sometimes it does because it totally disrupts, but most of the time it doesn't. So unless you've got the 10,000 hours in that specific industry, it doesn't matter what discipline you're in the industry, but unless you understand the mechanics of the industry, it's very difficult for people to change the game.
Men wanted for hazardous journey, low wages, bitter cold, long hours of complete darkness. Safe return out for honor and recognition, inventive success.
I think we have the critical mass needed to create globally scalable tech businesses. And I think we underestimate ourselves a little bit. So, without belief, you'll never get anywhere. I mean, in many ways, we have some massive advantages over Silicon Valley because we don't have the damaged goods. Like, it's a poison well. When people get rich, it's like poison the well.
Okay.
And people's motives change. So, and that's why people are moaning like the death of Silicon Valley now. Silicon Valley insiders are saying it's all dying because people look at Facebook and go, oh, I can just get rich, And as soon as I see the Instagram $1 billion, that everyone goes and creates another Instagram. And we don't have that, We don't have that precedent. We don't have that culture per se, which helps, filter things. Because, when people are going into the system, they're not doing it because they think they're going to make $1 billion, or some of them do. Most of them are doing it because they've got a dream. And people will do anything to achieve a dream. And the single most important thing that I get right nowadays, and that I have to keep reminding myself of, is I've stopped thinking about what's in it for me. I always think about how I'm helping other people. Whether it's my secretary, whether it's my partner, whether it's my shareholders, whether it's a customer, it's never. I find as soon as when things work like that, when people know that you're not thinking, you don't have an agenda for yourself, and you're sincerely trying to think how to help them achieve their ambitions, their dreams, their hopes, whatever it is, their revenue targets. That builds trust and loyalty. And when you've got that, then you can do anything. We've got this lacquer thing over here. I always say we've got 3 things that keep engineers happy.
Yeah.
A full-time barista.
Full-time barista?
Yeah.
Wow.
Former VDE guy.
Yeah.
We've got about 170 people, so it keeps busy. We've got great internet connectivity, and the guys play games over lunch and things like that, so they're all them up to do whatever they want. And lastly, we've got a picture of a semi-naked girl reception. And nothing can make an engineer more happy, or me for that matter, than a beautiful semi-naked girl every now and again. So we've got those things. It's like the church. If you build a church on fear, then you have to keep the threats there forever. Otherwise, people will stop coming to church because they won't be afraid anymore.
Yeah.
And to build a business on hope is a bit more tricky, but I think a bit more sustainable and certainly a lot more aspirational.
Yeah.
But I also find just telling the truth is quite effective. And people aren't used to the truth anymore. So I'm just brutally honest. Share everything. And I promise you, this is the trick. The people who mostly are running the world do not tell you the truth. And they think the people don't know that they're not being told the truth. The differentiator going forward for leaders is those who can have the guts to tell the truth. But as Winston Churchill says, if you're going to tell the people the truth, you must make them laugh, or they will kill you. Look, my day normally comprises, I wake up at 5, I go to work, do my email until about 7:30, and then my meetings start, and then I don't sit down again until about 6 o'clock. So all day long I'm walking, which is an amazing privilege to be able to live in a town like this where you can just walk so many different routes and all that stuff. And started doing it just after we started. So it's just, I mean, people relax. I think people think differently as well. Also, when it's a boring meeting, at least I'm not fucking stuck in a meeting room. I can walk and look at the view and ignore the person. So I think those are some advantages. When I read about Steve Jobs doing it, I was like, oh, fuck, now I look like a copycat. But I don't mind copycatting Steve Jobs. But, I also used to wear a hoodie. Like I've got some hurdy kit, and I had this jersey with a hoodie at the back.
Yeah.
And then one day, one of my mates said, you look like Zuckerberg or something. I'm like, so I've just stopped wearing hoodies. So there are some people I don't mind being, stereotyped with, but definitely don't want to be like Zuckerberg. For me, that is the absolute opposite.
Oh, really?
That business should be about. Watch my hand over here, and then you watch over there. The truth is very different from the noise. Like the form, they just think the form will fall literally whilst the substance carries on. And well, there's structure. You need to have structure. So I've got I work from 5 in the morning till 6 in the evening, Monday to Saturday. And then
Monday to Saturday, so Saturday as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, most Saturdays I do spend with my family, but the rule is I'm available and I work effectively. Okay. But after 6 in the evening and on Sundays, I don't look at my email and I don't do any business calls, no SMS, nothing. So that structure has created a lot of space for me to think. Yeah. Firstly, spend time with my family, and secondly, to read books and just get my mind out of the noise. So the other thing is that it's not that hard. It's not hard to be motivated when you love every minute of what you do. And it's because I do what I want to do. I'm following a dream that I wanted to follow. And there are tough times. In fact, there's definitely some shit which keeps me awake at night every now and again, and you've got to work through all of that. But for the most part, I find that as long as I stay true to dream and I keep my structure right, so my foundation remains stable and my family life's good, everything else kind of flows quite easily. But the one thing everybody should be doing should be consuming information. I mean, there's a lot of lessons out there, either verbally from mentors or reading articles or reading books, that we don't have to make the mistakes other people have made. And the only way you can do that is to consume information. What I'm trying to learn now is this principle I read last week. Guy Kawasaki wrote this book called Rules for Revolutionaries. I don't know if you've heard of it. Yeah. Quite a book. And he says you should eat like a hummingbird and poo like an elephant. So a hummingbird only per body mass percentage eats like more than its body mass, more than any other mammal or that kind of thing. So you must consume data.
Yeah.
Get in. But there's no good pooing like a hummingbird. You must poo like an elephant. So you've also got to share what you're getting. You've got to be good at taking all of that shit, condensing it, and then sharing it, and dumping it, and dumping it. And that's probably something which I think we all kind of inherently feel modest about. A, B, feel like everybody knows it anyway, so why would somebody read it? And that's why I like blogging, actually. I realize blogging is not intrusive. You're not like forcing people to read your frivolous thoughts, but the people that do find it interesting and have the value out of it, get something out of it. And it helps me as well, because when you write, it forces you to simplify your thinking.
Yes.
And explain it in a short post, then you You haven't actually understood it. So I think it's the shelves today or tomorrow. The Americans have overtaken us in other aspects. They were far behind us, and then with the iPhone and all that, it's kind of changed the game.
Okay.
But I think we will 10 years from now. The big stuff will have come out of Africa. It won't have come out of America. I think, and I don't think it's because we're cleverer or anything like that. I just think it's because this is where the needs are. So this is the lowest common denominator. If you solve the needs here in our context, with our challenges, rather than wait for everybody to get to the point where they've got credit cards and broadband, you'll take over the world. And because of, like you were saying now, because we're here, we can see those needs. Whereas when you're living in America, it's very difficult to imagine a world where data's not free and everyone doesn't have a smartphone and nobody's got a credit card. Payments is massive. It's the key. I mean, fundamentally, the reason nobody can make money in this game in Africa or outside of developed markets is you have to use indirect revenue models. You've got to either sell the data of your customer or you've got to sell advertising or something because you can't bill the customer, because there's no direct billing mechanism.
Okay.
Except through the telcos, and the telcos take too much of revenue share. So I think payments is very much a key. But we've got another strategy behind that as well. So we think payments. We also think ecosystem of developers. If you can build almost a micro-entrepreneur kind of model where you guys can develop content in local markets and monetize it. And lastly, using platforms like Mixit for NGOs and governments to build community. So I'd recommend the following kind of books. I'd recommend read Game of Thrones because there's some lessons in there, I think.
Okay.
Also, it'll just fucking make your imagination go wild there. And you need to be creative, and you're not going to be creative reading non-fiction all your life.
Yeah.
Read Game of Thrones. Read Second Bounce of the Ball. That was pretty good. I think it was Ronald Coe.
Okay.
That was actually a very good business book. Good biography to read is Team of Rivals. Barack Obama recommended that as well. It's Abraham Lincoln's story. It's a brilliant book. Read history. Read like history. Doesn't matter what history. Like local history, international history, any history. I find the more history I read, the better I understand context. You have to know where you're coming from if you know where you're going. Read. There's a great book about Africa. You need to learn about Africa. We all need to learn more about Africa. We live inside, we don't really know what Africa's about because of those apartheid years and all that. And there was two great books. One was written by Richard Dowden called Africa, Altered States, Ordinary Miracles. And the other one was by a guy called Rykard Kapuscinski or something. And it was The Shadow of the Sun. That is far and away the best book I've ever read on actual, like how Africa thinks, like how we think actually. An understanding of like what makes African community and society different from the rest of the world. Africans control time. Europeans are controlled by time.
Wow. Okay.
So that was like opening my eyes up to something. It just says, well, okay, who's right? The guys who are controlled by time or the guys who control time? I don't know if you know, there's a legend amongst the kind of traditional communities in South Africa and the elders and all of that the world will be lit from Africa. And Africa will light the world. And that light will start on the south, on the southern tip. And it feels like this is the time. It actually, that sounds a bit esoteric, but it does feel like this is the time where that change and awareness and kind of frame of what's right and what's wrong is starting to happen. And I know that I'll kill myself if 50 years from now I didn't try to be part of that wave. Even if it didn't happen. Love someone. There's my finger.
Yeah.
Do what you love. And be hated. Now, I'll tell you one thing I know where I'm different from all of those acts. I got married when I was 25. I took a lot of distraction out of my life. I was very lucky to marry a very good person. And, it just changed the way I think about the world. And then having kids also changed the way I think about the world. There are not many, Larry Page, Zuckerberg, all those guys, they don't have kids. Tim Cook, they don't have kids. Kids rewire your brain. They make you think differently about the future, about everything. And it really finally taught me about not being selfish, about finally having something that you think, there's no gender with your kids. You really are thinking, what's the best thing for them, regardless of what it impacts in your life. Yeah. So that's kind of a blessing for me, and I think it makes me different from some of the guys out there. What I do think about is I just try to make sure that there's nothing in my life that I can't tell my kids about. And that's basically how it works. So whether it's compromising my principles or the temptations to get into adult content online where all the money is, or to say I worked in this type of business versus that type of business, or whatever it was, I just try to remember that. I just remember I'm going to have to tell my kids about what I did with my life, and I don't want to not be able to tell them. I think you've got to believe. And that sounds like a very vague thing, but the truth is, even if you don't believe, even if you inside you can't make it, the country's fucked, but you say it's going to make it, and you start believing, it will make it, and you will inside start believing your own bullshit. It starts with just believing, just going, we're going to make it. This is going to be a great success. We're going to take over the world, and we're going to be, it's that kind of cognitive dissonance that we have in our heads that says, everything seems okay. My life's pretty good, all that shit. But every time I read an article or speak to somebody, it's a fucker. So you feel like you're having Imodium and a laxative at the same time. You don't know what's going on. You're having an anxiety attack. But you just stop noise and believe.
Okay.
But didn't fucking think they would make it.
Okay.
But most of the time they tried because they didn't know what it was entailed. When I think about all this, it's not possible that I would have tried to do all this stuff. But when your back's against the wall, when you have to do it or you die, you do it. And then that's what gives you the belief going forward. And then it becomes a cumulative thing. You're saying, last time I said it was impossible, I got through it, and I mustn't say that again this time, and maybe I'll get through it. But, there's a great trick. There's a great trick for getting through all adversity that I use all the time. Is you pick your picture, right? You say, what am I going to do? Whether it's a short-term picture or a long-term picture. I'm going to raise R1 billion, or I'm going to build the biggest games company in the world, or I'm going to be happily married for 60 years, or whatever it is. You pick that, you look at it, and then you look down, and you ignore every fucking step between you and that picture, except for the next step. And when you do the next step, you look up again, and you go, all right, I'm still on track. And then you look down and you go through the next step. And just like that mental exercise for me works for the complexity and the bigness of some of the shit I'm looking at right now. It's like you're going, I can't fucking know. I don't know how I'm going to get to it. I don't know how. How am I going to get through all of those steps? But you realize that every step after the next step is a guess. And you're worrying about it necessarily, and it's taking energy away from the next step, which is, unless you get this one right, it doesn't matter what If you're not doing it for a reason other than money, you ain't going to do this shit. You can never go down a path of greatness because money is not enough of an incentive. You're just a mercenary. You're not William Wallace, We're not doing this to win a race. We're doing this because it's a race.
Yeah.
And the race is part of the fun, So making sure we don't get pulled into directions that people want us to go down and say to ourselves, there's a way of doing this. There's a different way of doing this whole thing, everything. Where the way we run our business, the way we compete in the marketplace, the way we conduct ourselves. It doesn't have to be the way you see in the movies or you've seen in your own experience in businesses. I think there's a middle way, and we enjoy that. So it actually doesn't matter whether we win or lose. We're still enjoying the ride. There's a George Clooney acted in a movie called Men Who Stare at Goats.
Yeah.
I don't know if you watched it.
Yeah.
Really fucking weird movie. Anyway, they're down in the prison there, and the Taliban have got them or whatever. And I just was his buddy loses it. Oh my god, why did you get us into this thing? It's your fault. Blah, blah. And George Clooney grabs him and slams him against the wall and says, "Hey, listen, shut up, listen." He says, "Life is like a river, and it's flowing towards a destination. Every time you swim against the current, it feels difficult. You must just go with the flow. We are in this prison. This is what it's meant to be. There's nothing we can do about it. Just go with the flow. Rather than you fucking sitting there fighting the situation and swimming against the current and not actually getting into the flow." And that's how I think about opportunity. I think about women. I think about everything like that.
Yeah.
Don't read TechCrunch and all this bullshit where people give people $1 million or $50 million. This creates an expectation in people's minds, unfortunately. It's just noise. It's a bubble. It's only one part of the world where that happens.
Yeah.
The rest of the world is like what you said. So people want to delay starting their business, etc., because they want to get money available. You must just start. The first step in starting a business is not raising money. It's quitting your job. Because then when your back's against the wall, you've got to figure it out. You either got to sell, or you got to gear your house, or you got to ask people for money. Elon Musk.
I'm trying to.
It does. Fuck. I mean, I didn't really. I wasn't all of that big a fan. People that told me PayPal and all that stuff. But
Yeah,
geez, I tell you, I've got to give him credit.
yeah,
Fuck
huge.
me. He became my role model overnight. And I think he'd give you. I read this great interview that he did the other day before they got to space.
Okay.
Some interviewer, some sarcastic kind of journalist saying, "Yeah, Elon, after all these failures, don't you think you should give up now?" He said, "No, we're still going to get there. We have had some failures, but we've learned and we're going to get it right." The journalist keeps hammering away. Eventually, the journalist says, "Listen, why are you such a fucking optimist? He says, "What do you mean?" Well, yeah, dude, you just seem to want to be so upbeat and like ignore the negatives and all that stuff." It's like, so optimist, pessimist, fuck that. I'm going to make this work or I'm going to die trying. He's like, fuck off with your classification and stereotyping. Look, I'm just going to make it work. Just leave me alone. I love it. When I did my first business, my angel, just a great guy, Gavin, he gave me my break in life. But when we shook hands, he said, remember, you can make a lot of money in life, but you only make one name. So never throw away your name for money. It was all about reputation. And then I went through that whole Sunday Times thing and all of that. And then Branko, another good friend of mine, said to me, remember, the people who matter don't care, the people who care don't matter. I think that this kind of perception that reputation is the most important thing in the world is a very dangerous thing. It is important. You've got to be conscious of it. But it's not the most important thing in the world. If you run your life and your business and everything based upon what the crowd thinks, you are aiming for a life of mediocrity. And sometimes you're going to piss people off, and sometimes they're not going to like you up front, like Elon Musk. Great example of that. I think people can just kind of walk that path between understanding that you can't ignore what people say about you. The truth is, if you screw people, you're fucked. But on the other hand, not just pander to the crowd at every turn. I think you'll find a part, and for me at least, that's been the secret, finding the balance around how the direction we move in has been around that. It was never ever going to be down the road of screwing people, it's just not in me. But so it was never going to be down that road where you lose your reputation, but it definitely went down a road a little bit where I was too worried about what people think. Don't worry about what people think. Be conscious of what people think, but don't worry about what people think.
Okay. All right. Cool. Alan, thank you so much. You've given me so much of your time, some incredible advice, great learnings. Really appreciate it. And thank you. And I hope you have an incredible day forth from here because you've made our day.
Sure. Well, pleasure, Jason. Nice to meet you, dude.
Cool. Thanks, Alan.